I'm Bob Hallmark in Longview today, and it is springtime, as everybody already knows. It's been a mild winter, and we've had a fairly good beginning to the spring with good temperatures and some rainfall, so conditions look pretty good right now. There's reason for optimism for anybody who's getting ready to plant. However, there's probably some things that you should have taken care of previously, and if you haven't, we're going to tell you what you need to do at this point. And that's why we're joined now by Gregg County AgriLife Extension Agent Shanequa Davis.
How are you?
I'm good. We haven't talked in a while, and now springtime. In your experience, I'm sure that there's lots of people looking forward to making that produce shine and beautiful and productive and everything. It's not as simple as just putting water and putting it in the ground, is it?
No, most definitely not. If you're talking, if you're growing anything, whether it's hay, whether it's grass for your yard, or you're doing a vegetable garden, you want to get your soil tested. Mm-hmm. So you need to know the nutrients that's in your soil, so that way you're providing the correct nutrients to your forage, to your vegetable production, anything like that.
Sometimes this can be deceptive. I mean, you have a mild winter, you have a nice rainfall, good temperatures. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks it's perfect. That's not necessarily true because unless you've taken steps to ensure that you have the right nutrient in your soil, you might not get much anyway. So preparation, I'm guessing, is a key for people.
Most definitely. One of the analogies I like to use, because people call all the time and they want to know how much fertilizer to put out. And I ask them, do you put oil in your car without checking your dipstick first? You don't know how much oil to put in your car if you don't know how much is in there already. So you don't know how much fertilizer to put out there if you don't know what the nutrient levels are that are already in your ground. So if you are off with your lime, your soil can be too acidic. If you are adding too much nitrogen, especially in yards, we end up seeing a lot of disease issues. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of variations. Produce does not grow well if it doesn't have the proper nutrient levels. So you have a lot of variations and factors that just getting a simple soil test will be able to answer those for you.
Now, on the bigger issue here, we see a lot more people doing this now on a small scale. Mm-hmm. There are big, farmers out there that, plow 100, 200 acres or whatever and grow. I'm sure you deal with them a lot as far as they want to know everything about what is this season going to be like.
Oh, most definitely. The big thing is it going to continue raining? That's one of the things where we have some futures. The A&M system, they have a climatology website that you can look at some of the past trends, some of the future predictions. Obviously, it's a prediction. Mm-hmm. So, just looking at the weather, watching that, being able to cut your grass at the proper time, that's going to be the big things, is just knowing when your forage is ready, whenever you need to be able to cut it, looking at the weather to make sure you can get out there to cut it, that it's going to have time to dry, and that you can get your tractors out there without getting stuck. That's going to be the big thing.
Right. Everything from hay to traditional staples, produce. We'll start seeing some East Texas, I'm sure, produce at some point that will start making its way into the market.
Yeah, most definitely. A lot of people have actually started their gardens already. Mm-hmm. The big thing is the transplants, those things that aren't very frost tolerant. If you've already got those into the ground, just watch the nighttime temperatures. If you see that it's going to get in the lower 30s, you may want to throw a cloth or something over those just to protect those young tender plants.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing, is that conventional wisdom is that everybody plants after Easter, because that traditionally is when you've already had your last freeze, and that's not necessarily true either.
No, because if you look at it this year, Easter is a little early. Mm-hmm. We do provide some information about the first and last date frost a period of time throughout the year. So if you go to our Overton Research Center website, they actually have, for the past several years, the first frost and the last frost date. So that way it can give you a range. And those look to be generally around, I believe it was the middle to the end of March. So we are probably getting into the right time, and based on the temperatures, that I've looked at in the futures, they seem to be leveling off, so they're not getting too low in the evenings.
Is Is the prospectus pretty good this season, or is it too early to call on that? As I know that a lot of people are hoping that we have a boon, a bumper crop here in Texas. It may be a little too early to call on that, but what are we looking like right now?
Yeah, I mean, right now I would say it is still a little too early. If you're talking about crops like vegetables, produce, things like that, it's mainly you've got to pay attention. You've got to water, you've got to fertilize whenever it's needed. You have to be able to put your eyes on those gardens every day because a bug, a disease, if they get too dry, if you have an animal that gets out there and digs something up, you never know. You just have to be able to pay attention. For hay production, things like that, I mean, you're just up to nature and hoping that it continues to rain like it has been.
All right, so it's a science, but it still does depend on some variables.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, thank you so much, Shanequa.
Thanks.
All right, and we'll have more on this story tonight on KLTV 7 News. For KLTV Web Extra, I'm Bob Hallmark.